Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girvaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girvaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girvaradhari Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pariparajika Charya Suttara Sutta Sisimat His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pariparajika Charya Suttara Sutta Sisimat His Divine Grace Bhakti Saranta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Nama Charisho Haridashtakur Ki Prem se Gausi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Navadvip Mayapura Ki Gangamai Ki Yamunamai Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Tulsi Devi Ki Hari Ram Sankirtan Ki ISKCON Scarborough Yatra Ki Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna Glories to the assembled devotees
Hare Krishna
Glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna
Hare
Glories to
Krishna
Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauramani Puracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachari Satarine. Thank you very much, everyone in Scarborough. And we're just choosing a verse to speak from. At least we'll cover some of the purport from chapter 16. The topic that I was given was something that would have been really appropriate about a year ago, and I guess it's still applicable. We're talking about how to keep up your faith during the pandemic. So the pandemic indicates something that's very negative, something that's very challenging. It brings about uncertainty, and some people say that it's a scandemic. I met one guy who says, tell me, what's your view on this scandemic that's going on? So, but it's very real. People are suffering, people are dying. Our economical structure is being challenged, and our whole lifestyle. You can't hug, you can't kiss, you can't have people come to your home. So many things are going on like that. But anyways, I would just like to zero in on one verse from the Bhagavad Gita, from a chapter that reminds me of the pandemic, and especially the portion where it talks about demonic natures. So from 16:16, Anekachita vibranta moha jala samavrita aprakashita kama bhogishu patanti narakesu chao. Translation: perplexed by various anxieties and bound by a network of illusions, the demonic become too strongly attached to sense enjoyment and fall down into, guess what the word is, narake, into hell. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktimarga Swami Prabhupada. The demoniac man knows no limit to his desire to acquire money. That is unlimited. He thinks only of how much assessment he or she has just now, and schemes to engage that stock of wealth further and further. For that reason, he or she does not hesitate to act in a sinful way, and so deals in the black market for illegal gratification. Such a person is enamored by the possessions one already has, such as land, family, house, and bank balance, and such a person is always planning to improve them, believing in his own strength and always planning to improve them. He does not know that whatever he is gaining, he does by his own past deeds. Given an opportunity to accumulate such things, such a person has no conception of past causes. Such an individual simply thinks that all massive wealth is due to one's own endeavor. A demonic person believes in the strength of one's personal work, not in the law of karma. According to the law of karma, a person takes birth in a high family or becomes rich or very well educated or very beautiful because of good work in the past. The demonic think that all these things are accidental and due to the strength of one's personal ability. They do not sense any arrangement behind all the varieties of people, beauty, and education. Anyone who comes into competition with such a demonic person is the enemy. There are many demoniac people, and each is enemy to the other. This enmity becomes more and more deep between persons, then between families, then between societies, and at last between nations. Therefore, there is constant strife, war, and enmity all over the world. Hare Krishna. And the purport goes on. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Namo Vishnupadaya Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachare Satarine. So the concern is pandemic. It's a new word that has been added to our vocabulary. We didn't know it before. Pan, everybody knows what a pan is. Some people chew pan or pan, and a pan is something that you cook in. And we've heard about epidemic and pan, but this term pandemic refers to something that's really threatening, all pervasive, super challenging, and it's been with us now for over a year. And the reason why I chose this purport and verse from the 16th chapter is to indicate that there is a constant strife element in the world, war and enmity all over the world. So the pandemic is something that had gone on before this virus was in place, and it's going to go on even after all the vaccines have been dispersed to all the people. What I mean by that is that there is always something in the air that's going to take your life or put you down. The media has done a very good job of hyping the situation. I'm not saying that that is a wrong thing to do, because if you follow the news, it's all about hype and it's all about negativity pretty much. I know a lot of people say, I don't follow the news, it makes me too depressed. That's very, very common. And, just like last night, I picked up a newspaper the first time I did in about 3 years. And one of the cover stories had 251 remains of children were found from a residential school. So that sounded pretty depressing. And I was kind of curious to know, you go to, this is in the Globe and Mail, you go to page A4, and that's where the story is. And it is a sad story. Some kids as young as 3 or 4 years old were lost forever. And now they found the burial grounds. This is one of the biggest residential schools in Canada. And it's in Kamloops, British Columbia. That is a pandemic. Taking the children and separating them from their parents and not allowing them to speak their own language or to follow their own customs. This is like a big sin. If you don't think that there's going to be some bad karma coming from that, then while you're just living in some kind of big illusion. So it was very depressing, and to hear about that are the children of this land, the ones that were here first, were put into schools and they died. Who knows how but no one knew where they went, and they found, remains of their bodies. So very, very depressing. Another person, I might have mentioned this group here that said, if you talk to somebody who went through the Second World War, they'll say, oh, this is nothing. What we're going through. This is nothing. So in terms of keeping up faith, Shraddha, which Prabhupada defines as a trust in something, sublime trust in something that's extraordinary, an unflinching faith or trust in something sublime. And during pandemics, during wars, during difficult struggles that humankind goes through, people oftentimes get into prayer. I saw some film footage the other day of men who were hopping the trains and going to the top of the trains, like that were carrying cargo. And why? They had nothing. They had nothing, no briefcases. They had no lunch boxes or anything. They had nothing. They had no work. And in those days, it was pretty much, very few ladies did work in, let's say, conventional places. Women stayed at home and looked after the house and the family and things like that. But the men were really struggling. They felt it was their duty to earn. And so some of them just hopped the train to go to somewhere where there might be better prospects, like say, like a city of Toronto, which was growing. And it just, those were hard times for people. Or let's take an example of people who went through the partition in India. Some people had to leave their country, leave their house, get out of here, go. And then go into another country. What was part of India was taken away, and they were just forced. Everybody knows Subhuti, our fantastic cook here. I heard her story. She told me her story about when she was young, and she was just a baby, and there was a big what did they call it? Earthquake, and she was found, under a bed, hours after the earthquake happened. And then after that, there was the partition a few years later, and, struggle. That's what this world is all about, Dukaliam Shashvatam. So I think that there isn't anything you could do but have faith, during difficult times. There isn't anything. It becomes very obvious that I must take shelter, as we say, that's common, term amongst the devotees. There's nothing else to do but to submit to a higher power. And so we also have to ask, why are these problems here? Well, we created them. We are responsible for the mishaps. We're responsible for the chaoses. And we must take responsibility for this karma. These things are not accidental. They are providential. They really do happen, and there's nothing we can do about it except for the fact that we must accept they are with us. The whole uncertainty factor about not knowing what's going to come of it all, how we will reset, so to speak, also leaves us a little bit in wonder, and that's also the feature of life. We should be enjoying wonder in one sense. What's going to happen? What's around the corner? Life is always like that. In my personal opinion, before the pandemic, I thought the world was in a bad state. You know, many countries that are so-called developed, there are millions and billions of trillions of dollars in debt. That is nothing to blow your horn about, you know. There was already diseases, you know, and I don't think the figures are very clear, but many people were dying from just the common cold or just from some other condition. I don't know if the numbers are up now just because of COVID, but there were already people dying, you know, and astronomical figures. So always this will be there. This is the point I'd like to make. How to keep up your faith during the pandemic. The pandemic always was and always will be. You know, it's just not set up to be a perfect place. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu traveled through the south, he came upon the Shastras, which we call the Brahma Samhita, which is a treatise given by the first guru in our disciplic succession, Brahma. And Brahma, who was the first created being, had realizations. Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye Muyanti Suraya. He was enlightened, you know. The flute of Krishna was playing, and he became enlightened from hearing the fifth note, especially. And what his realizations were recorded, we have the remains of it, chapter 5, and there you see a beautiful description. The earth that you walk on is described as chintamani. It's like jewels, you're walking on jewels. The trees that grow around you are called kalpa vrikshas, which means that you can get whatever you want from the trees, whatever you desire will come. If you want a mango, it will deliver mango. If you want a pear or a peach, in my opinion, a good peach is better than a mango. So, and then what else? All the people around you are just absolutely beautiful. The natural resources are of a hygienic nature, pristine, clean, and so on like that. And the people or others mention of Lakshmis, you know, goddesses of fortune, beautiful looking ladies and so on, flowers and everything that is what sort of capsulizes beautiful features of heaven is there in the spiritual world. So that's Brahma Samhita. And people's eyes are anointed, Premananda Churito, they're anointed with the salve of love of God, with prema, love for the Supreme. So it's a place full of love. And we attempt in this world, here in this world, to insert love, or we kind of demand love. First, if you want to demand love, you should first of all give love, and then you will receive love. And that's another feature of this world, is that we make many demands, we have high expectations, but the expectations in the real world should be that there's going to be, valleys, and there's going to be, high peaked mountains. There's going to be ups and there's going to be downs. And this is the truth. And basically everything kind of goes downhill, especially if you got a physical body. I'm 68, I'll be 69 in not a long amount of time from now. And I'll be the same age as when Prabhupada was, when he took the Atlantic, ocean liner called the Jaladuta. And so I think about, really? Am I that old? And because when I first joined the movement, I was 20, and I saw Prabhupada, and I thought he was quite the mature person. And it was hard for me to imagine at that time, if I can be that old, will I get there? And by golly, I got there. I could have died quite a few times over, especially being on highways and being in accidents and all those kind of things. But I was spared and I was allowed to live. But to come to this point, and I feel the physical prowess diminishing. I feel that whatever stamina may be there is also on the decline. And that's what aging is all about, Hopefully I'm getting wiser as my body, decreases in vitality. That maybe revelations or brain power is expanding. I just hope so, But I would just like to say that this idea, this feature of pandemic, which some people have figured out, let's work it out. And some people actually believe that it's planned out, it's a plot. It'll last for so long, and then we'll end it, And it's reasonable to believe that there are people who have schemed this kind of machination. It's very believable, but I'm not going to get caught up in conspiracy theorism. The whole world is always a conspiracy. There's always someone in charge. There's always some tyrant. There's always a Kamsa, a Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha, modern day Hitlers. They're always, they've been there. And I think it'll be interesting to see when this is all basically over. We'll see some bright spots. We'll see that some adjustments have been made into the way we do things, and new ideas have come up, and we say, hey, well, maybe there was some positive elements that came out of all this big challenge that we're experiencing right now. And we do, as Vaishnavas, it's our obligation to count the blessings and to see what good is coming out from anything that you do, I believe that we have to really look at what's important for the moment and appreciate what exists, and that comes, whatever comes out of it that's positive. I was asked to speak later on the topic of mindfulness versus mindlessness, and so I pulled out some verses on what it means to be mindful. Well, first of all, mindful is to be mindful is defined in the Bhagavad Gita through the word samadhi. It's like a constant fixation on the absolute. This is like in a nutshell how to describe mindfulness. And it means to really be mindful of the moment. I'm just going to give you my take on what I feel is mindfulness. And this very moment that we're going through, this very moment, is the best moment, which was born of the past and which will shape the future. Therefore, it deserves our full attention at this moment. Is so important. I've got some quotes for people about mindfulness. And if you're mindful, you can overcome pandemics, which will continue on in a series forever and ever until the end of the Kali Yuga, when there's a devastation, and then we start a new, like a fresh experience. So here's somebody by the name of Pema Chodron speaking about mindfulness. Rejoicing in ordinary things is not sentimental or trite. It actually takes guts. So let's analyze that a little bit, and I believe in what's being said here, is that it takes some deep thought to appreciate what is simple in life. You know, it takes guts, as it is said here. Most of us thrive on sensational things to do with the body, stimulations of the what we call sense gratification. Let's say, hits emotional, touches emotional buttons, presses buttons, and then we feel that something meaningful has happened to my life. But actually, it's the simple things that we point out that need to be addressed and need to be appreciated. Simple things need to be appreciated. Krishna speaks in the 17th chapter of Bhagavad Gita about how simplicity is the austerity of the mind. It's one of the austerity, simplicity. And if you can appreciate the simple things, not the complexities, but rather the simplicities, you will be championing, you will be conquering over some of the difficulties of the world. Here's another, wow, that's a squeaky door. Here's something from Chogyam Trungpa, sounds Oriental. Altogether, the idea of meditation is not to create states of ecstasy or absorption, but to experience being. So what we're saying here is that appreciate the here and the now, this very moment. And we don't have to, let's say, grope around looking for an ecstasy or an exciting moment. I sometimes meet people, oh, and out of this chanting, you feel real good, right? You get a buzz, you get some kind of ecstasy from the chanting, which is true. You'll feel some kind of happiness, but the state of just being able to live. Now that might seem like what we call a Mayavad notion, just to be, to exist. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was talking about Tattvamasi, just, like some yogis or rishis, they say Tattvamasi, which means just be, exist. Well, that's true, but there was a famous book that came out a few decades ago, Be Here Now. And basically it's saying live for the moment, enjoy the mode of goodness thing. Do you mind pulling out the doties and folding them now before they get all wrinkled? Sorry, a little instruction, the doties is particularly. So real meditation means to just accept what you have, what's there, and don't have these high expectations. If you could do the first, that'd be best. Okay, let's pull them. Here's something from Sharon Salzberg. That's life, starting over, one breath at a time. In other words, each breath that we take in is of value. Just like every time you wake up in the morning, a devotee is thinking, that's what I mean, that's all wrinkled. So do it now. Every time when you wake up in the morning, you feel this is the best morning, this is the best part of the day. And as the hour passes by, at each moment is valued, each moment is important. Why? Because Krishna is present there. And if we have no sense of Krishna's actual omnipresence, then we will be thinking so many other things. We'll be conjuring up ideas, well, it's all Maya, or it's all his fault or her fault. And instead of playing the blame game, just simply accept that, whatever is the mercy of Krishna. Yeah. And I have to take it, accept with my head up high, and accept the consequences that are there, the challenges. A challenge for a devotee is always an opportunity, really. And then from Alan Locos, you cannot control the results, only your actions. I bet you Alan read the Bhagavad Gita, wherein Krishna is saying that you are simply be attached to the services and not to the results in the end. Be committed to your obligations, and whatever is the result, don't worry about it. And Krishna explained that to Arjuna. He said, okay, you're talking about a war, it's already over. It's over, Krishna is saying. The result is there. Krishna, of course, knew that the Pandavas would be victorious. There were all these precursors, there were all these prophetic signs that the Pandavas would be victorious because of the symbol of Hanuman on Arjuna's chariot, because of Krishna's blowing the conch the way it did, he and Arjuna, it came out so uproariously. And so for so many other reasons, it became inevitable that the Pandavas would be successful. So Krishna was more or less saying, listen, the war is over. Even though no one had released one arrow at that particular time. But the war, it was all predetermined by the Lord. And Krishna is simply saying, Arjuna, all you have to do is play out your role, be an instrument in the fight. Mimitam matram vavasavya sachin. Simply act as an instrument in the fight. Francis of Assisi was talking about being an instrument of thy peace. Same idea, be an instrument, be a conduit, be a tool, stop playing God, And of course, those people that may have created, whether it was in the laboratory, the COVID-19, or whether it was something that was born of the wet markets in China. Anyways, it doesn't matter. There's always going to be somebody stirring up trouble. The world's full of troublemakers, and you yourself don't want to be a troublemaker. Let's say if you're a bully in the school, or you're bullied, do you want to become a bully? Of course, sometimes people say that, don't get bullied, learn how to fight them off. That's okay, and that's all right, but certainly don't become a bully yourself now that you feel I've got a certain strength that I didn't know I had before. Now I know the art of fighting. We don't need to go there. We need to simply encourage and shape, a good mind, a mind of thoughtfulness, a mind in the mode of goodness. So I just wanted to reiterate that there's a constancy in pandemics. One is just replaced by another. Well, the name changes, and that's all, but they're really all the same. There was a song by Patrick Skye, and he was a traveler. I don't think he walked, but he probably hitchhiked. And he was just saying, I've gone through many towns. They're all the same. The only difference is in a name. right? So that's the material world, full of challenges, and they come in the shape of janma, mrityu, jira, vyadi. Vyadi, that's the last one. It's a disease, and we're always taxed by them. When I was a kid, I was thinking, what is this thing called leprosy? You know, worried about leprosy was going on for a long time, where people lose their, so there's like, it's a body rot disease. And I imagine it smells terrible. We hear about some contemporaries of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they suffered from leprosy, you know, and then some saintly people would come and take care of the lepers. You know, they were so bold. They were like the medical workers going in there and being fearless. So the world is a tough place, and we have to ply through it in a fearless way. Show some bravado, you know, be courageous, be a little bit of a kshatriya, you know, and as Prabhupada was, you know, how many people discouraged him, you know, from coming to North America? There was so much, like there was opposition, you know, before he came, even from Sumati Morarji, the lady who ran the whole ocean liner business. And she said, Swamiji, you're too old, and America is too cold. So she was just, let's say, discouraging Prabhupada, but from coming to the West, but he was not deterred. He felt that if there's going to be some challenges, some difficulty, that's just a consequence of living in the material world. So we should expect these things. I sometimes talk to my peers, you know, and we say, well, we've never had this kind of experience before, this kind of pandemic where with these lockdowns and so on like that. But there always is some kind of challenge, and they're all, you know, they all have their own flavor and their own color. And, you know, people are restricted more from sense gratification now because of lockdowns, but they find new ways to be deviant. They find innovative ways to do things that are promiscuous. At least that's what I hear about. The whole, let's say, output in this material world is one big deception, and it just goes on. And I think one thing that we should not be caught up in is ongoing fear. We should find ways and means to overcome this. You know, that only worsens the situation. That's one thing we learned from Prabhupada, who was so fearless, that whatever conditions are there, you know, accept, go through it, and hopefully you'll come out okay. But if you allow fear to rule your life, you will, it will affect you physically. I know some people also who live by astrological chart readings, and you know, they're always constantly living in fear in the most cases. On such and such a date, something's going to happen to me. Oh no, I'm getting close, and constantly there's this fear. But Prabhupada's name was Abhay. That's the name that was given to him. And his title, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Bhaktivedanta was awarded to him after he got Diksha, and then Prabhupada came later on during the time that after he had started the movement. And the AC part stands not for air conditioning, even though Prabhupada's the coolest guru in the world. And it doesn't stand for Air Canada, because I don't think he ever took an Air Canada flight. But it stands for Abhay Charan. Of the first part of the word means being fearless, and fearless in this world, which tends to be full of fear. Also in the Gita, chapter 2, the Lord's describing what fear is all about and how you can overcome it. Nehabhikramanashosti pratyaveya navidyate swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bayat, which means that simply execute some service. It can be a small amount. Do some seva. And by doing so, you are protecting yourself from the greatest fear, or let's say danger. And that danger is not knowing what kind of body you'll get in your next life. So if you want to be free from danger, then it means to execute devotional service, execute bhakti, service to others. Chapters 17, verse 16 also talks about service and doing good works for others. So these are some of the areas in which we can build our strength during a pandemic, which is always there, always will exist. So I'm just looking at the time a little bit. 11:43. Okay, we are going to leave some time for your questions, which would be, valuable. And again, faith is something that is very precious, and it seems to be a concomitant factor of a devotee's life, to have a trust, kind of a trust in the Supreme, because the Lord's Prakriti, the material energy, brings us an experience of a lot of mistrust. You can't trust the weather. Who would have believed that snow was going to come at the end of May? Like that, what happened the other day, like you can't trust the weather. And certainly we can't trust our minds. That's another feature of material existence. The mind is helter-skelter, chanchalam, here, there, all over the place, like the monkeys of Vrindavan. They're all over, and 1 minute they're in this branch, they're in that branch, then they're in another tree, then they're on a rooftop. And so this is the nature of our existence in the material world. Nothing steady, very few things are firm. Everything can look really so rosy, but then suddenly something happens, a shock comes to our existence. Some person's life has ended. Yeah, so we are hoping that, even though I've in some way been diminishing the impact in some ways in my description of what I see as the pandemic, I do hope that devotees will build up enough strength to be able to, accept these challenges of life, whether it's a pandemic or epidemic or some emic, just some or other, bear the brunt, bear the pain, and continue and go on, carry on in this world like some kind of warrior, even though there's some wounds, even though there's cuts and blood and maybe some body parts missing. Just continue to go on and do what needs to be done. That's, continue with some level of bravado. So thank you very much. I think that we can, my experiences the last few classes we gave, people have a lot of good questions, and I'm hoping that might be the case, and that ends up being a whole new class, a second class. So if we can ask any individual if they have something on their mind that they'd like to say in regards to our topic, that would really be appreciated. Thank you. And I will conclude, because at noon, I always attend the noon arti in the temple. Aren't I a lucky dog? I get to go to at least 3 artis every day. And the last one is at the Rajboga, the noon arti. And we are also waiting for the time when we can all see you again. I know that time will come. Hare Krishna. So do we have any questions then?
Thank you, Maharaj. We have some appreciations for giving a wonderful class today. Maharaj, you nicely touched about the mindfulness. The question is, how can we develop our mindfulness to enjoy this very moment? Like how to enjoy this time today, or this moment in the morning. You said
mindfulness refers to appreciating the very moment. So that, like we said, the term is used, it takes guts. It takes a concerted effort to analyze what is there for this moment. It's a matter of appreciating this moment and not being too anxious to push for the future moments, but to sort of live in the present and relish it and make it the most valuable part of the whole day, instead of aspiration or depression, things of the past. So it's really a matter more of what is present. Embrace it. What is in the past? Well, just walk away from it. And what is to come in the future? Enjoy let's say, the anticipation. So, love life with those kind of adaptations in one's existence. So whatever you have now, it's the best. It's not what you are hoping to acquiesce. It's whatever is there for the moment. Appreciate it. Like, say, you look out the window now, sun is shining. Somebody might say it's a little cold, but just look at the bright side of it. That's all. Okay, I'm getting older. Okay, great. I'm getting closer to Krishna. If old means being closer to death, which it is for a lot of people, then, hey, I'll get a chance to get closer to Krishna, or I might have a new body again and something I can admire and adore. So somehow the devotee is somebody who can just pick up all the bright points in life and is very quick to recognize those bright spots. Very quick. It takes no big endeavor. Well, one doesn't have to strain to see what's good about here, what's now, and what's around me. I hope that helps.
Wonderful answer, Maharaj. There's another question. You already touched upon that question. The question is, how can we be fearless when we are in danger, like in pandemic time?
Well, when you're having some kind of fear experience, one may, let's say, take refuge in that which is more powerful than oneself. When we're in fear, it means we're in a weak state. So then submit to the strong, right? And what's stronger than us? It's Krishna. Maya tries to weaken us, but Maya is weak in the face of Krishna. So we take shelter of Krishna. We have the holy name, and that is always very helpful. As soon as you chant Hare Krishna, there's a recollection of Krishna, and he's more powerful than his own physical energy, which we call Prakriti. His Maya is subordinate to him. And so in this way, we can become fearless. And also there's a certain amount of strength that comes in being the right company, being in the right association, that you feel an extra reinforcement. Strength comes from connecting with with knowledge of the absolute. Strength comes from reading and, let's say, perusing through the dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna. There's a certain amount of strength that comes from that. So whereas one point you're weak, he becomes strong. Arjuna was weak and he was full of fear that there would be negative consequences for going ahead with this war. But as Krishna sort of rolled out the words of wisdom, Arjuna could understand that, yeah, I don't have to be fearful anymore. I just have to be committed to my duty, and the result is left up to the Lord. So you're just taking shelter of that which is stronger than the antagonist. The antagonist is Maya. What's stronger than Maya? Krishna. Maya is Krishna's energy. And the energetic is stronger than the energy. Right? So, Hare Krishna, take shelter of him, and everything will be okay. Should be okay. Even though the onslaught of the material energy will keep coming at you. It may not stop right away, but it's like running a fan. Right now, I have a fan running in my face, or it's almost in my face. And if I unplug it, it starts to slow down. The propellers will slow down. Eventually, everything will stop in terms of the movement of air. And so in the same way, you have to unplug your connections with the material energy. Try to disassociate yourself from the material energy and change your lifestyle. Be committed to the Krishna culture. So get away from the me culture. You'll always live in fear. Like if it's all about centered around the body, but it's centered more around the spirit, the Atma, then one can experience fearlessness.
Thank you, Maharaj. Wonderfully explained.
Sometimes, there's these rangers like in Africa, the ones that are very experienced in elephant country, they've had the experience where a big bull will come at them, so if you react full of fear, run away, he'll trample you, he'll take you, with his nostrils, I guess, his hose, his trunk, he'll just grab you and throw you. I've seen that before myself, that one elephant, we took a New York brahmachari, we were sitting and looking at Gulab Kali in Mayapur, and this elephant just grabbed him by the waist and threw him. Fortunately, he was in a stack of hay. So some of these rangers, they figured out the best way to deal with this, like a wild bull elephant, for instance. You just stand there. And that's the best way to deal with, like a wild bear in most cases. Just stand there or just move out of the way. Don't show fear. As soon as you show fear, their adrenaline starts to get excited, starts to circulate, and they say, hey, this is great. I'm going to really dig in. Same thing with a cougar, like all these different kinds of creatures. Try not to show fear. And even if they come and take a chunk out of you, I'm not the body. You might be in pain for some bit, but I'm not the body. Fear comes from identifying with the body. That's where it comes from. Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj. Wonderful insight.
Oh, you are wonderful.
We feel encouraged. There is a question from Jitamrita Pramodini Mataji. Mataji, you can actually unmute yourself and ask the question directly.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
You can also turn on your video, Mataji, so that Maharaj can see you.
It would be nice.
Yes. Thank you, Mataji. Ask your question now, please. Mataji, we think we have audio problem. Can you write your question in the chat so that we can actually ask that question to Maharaj?
Gentle voice.
Yeah.
Amal Tagore. Soft.
Yeah, we can't hear you, properly. You can check your audio, Mataji, and you can ask the question. While Mataji is preparing her question, Maharaj, I have a question to you. Maharaj,
Yes,
the question is that you just mentioned that Alan, he said that you can't control the result. And Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita 2:47 that you are not entitled to the fruits of action.
that's right.
Did Alan actually read Bhagavad Gita, or is this from different philosophy?
Your question is,
Like, did he read Bhagavad Gita, Alan?
well, I don't know the fellow, but it's my, it would be my speculation that this fellow probably read the Gita and got some ideas, and maybe it's reinforced with his own experience. But it is one of the most powerful verses in the Gita. There's no doubt about that. This is a very strong suggestion. What to do about your life. You have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you're not entitled to the fruits of action. Never consider yourself the cause of the results of your activities, and never be attached to not doing your duty. So a lot of people take credit for certain philosophical points that were made by God thousands of years ago, but they just like to take the credit. And to some degree, maybe they have rephrased it or paraphrased it, and we can give them credit for that. Maybe it reads a little easier, it's understood better, spoken in a current language. No, but really it means the same thing. So I don't know about these persons I quoted from. Their messages are, let's say, a reflection of what Krishna's talking about in the Bhagavad Gita. So that's why we brought them to the fore. But it's a good question. You can research them, online and see if I bet you anything he probably just read the Gita and it rang true for him and said, okay, now he takes some credit.
Yes,
people do that all the time. They take the Gita and they do a commentary and I say Bhagavad Gita, by such and such, but actually Bhagavad Gita is by Lord Sri Krishna. And other people like to take the credit.
Yes, Prabhu, Maharaj. Maharaj, Jagannath Mishra Das Prabhu is thanking you for giving a wonderful instructions. Jagannath Mishra Prabhu, do you have any question? You can ask the question directly.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please upon this.
Hare Krishna, Jagannath Mishra, great soul.
Thank you for giving us your time. I know you're so busy, but on behalf of the Yatra at Scarborough, thank you so much, Maharaj, especially during this time. And I know we're hopefully slowly easing out of the pandemic, but I think, as you rightly said, we always have to invest our faith in Lord Krishna. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Haribol.
All glories to you, Maharaj.
Jai. Haribol. We'll see you later today, I hope.
Yes, Maharaj, I'll look forward to your class this evening at ISKCON Scarborough. Thank you.
Okay. Jai. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jitamrita Mataji, is it okay for you to ask question now? Can you check again your audio? You can turn on your audio and or unmute yourself. Try to ask the question, please.
I sent it in the chat, the question.
Okay, sure. Give me 1 second, let me check it.
The chat is where it's at.
Yes. She wrote, devotees have a good sadhana where they can follow and worship Krishna, but what about family members who turn to you asking for advice about their feeling about this pandemic? What advice can we give them, although in reality they are in ignorance, to accept praying more or improving their lives, or as you say, live at this moment?
Okay, we'll have to simplify this a little bit. So the question is, what do you do about family members? What can we say? What advice can we give them? Those who are not following the sadhana necessarily, what advice can we give them to do with the pandemic and so on? Is that the question?
Yes, Maharaj.
No, I love your little echo there. Well, so the same advice, whatever we were talking about, I mean, we just spent the last hour speaking about how to accept this pandemic. And well, one thing that I think people should know is that, listen, we're all guilty here. We've brought it onto ourselves. We've not been good to the environment. And so the environment is coming back at us with a vengeance, Look at how we're treating the environment. We don't recycle enough. We use so much wastage. We're all guilty of, putting plastics out into the ground, and, who knows what kind of repercussions will be there in the future as a result of this. Oh, we can give so many examples, really, where we're doing things wrong. But we're just getting some reactions. It's called the law of action and reaction. I think it's good to tell people that, hey, we've done some things wrong. The pandemic is here to remind us that, we have to be a lot more careful. We have to be a lot more sensitive to how we're treating this world, right? So sensitivities must arise now. And then we'll see a better future. But as long as we're in the material world, which means that we're harboring so many desires that are somewhat of a selfish nature, it just means we're going to go through some suffering. Again, I'll just, people are dying from COVID, but before COVID, people were dying there were other deaths, that their attention has been shifted to COVID patients. And, other people who are going through other challenges physically have been sort of put somewhat to the side. So my point is that there's always a pandemic. I would just tell people, there's always a pandemic. There's always some problem out there, and one is replaced by another. Yeah, so let us take shelter of devotional service. Think of the Lord, keep him in our mind, and move forward. Oh my God, yeah. So I hope that helps.